Welcome to Franklin Covey's Be a Better Leader series. I'm your host, Lena Renee. I serve as the Senior Vice President of Professional Services and Client Facilitation for Franklin Covey. On this season of Be a Better Leader, we're talking all about how to help your leaders become more successful even in the midst of uncertainty and change. At Franklin Covey, we help organizations achieve results that require collective behavior change. And we know that the best performing organizations use a common execution framework to pursue their most important goals. On this season of Be a Better Leader, we're talking all about how to help your leaders become more successful. And in this episode, we'll be talking about how to achieve breakthrough results even in this new world of work. We're going to discuss why an execution system is beneficial to the success of your organization and how it can solve some of the biggest problems that leaders face. Here with us today to talk about how to show breakthrough results, even through turbulent times, is Scott Thele, the National Practice Leader for Franklin Covey and co-author on the 4 Disciplines book. Welcome, Scott. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Lena, I can say the same. It's great to see you again. I'm excited to be a part of this. So many good things are happening in our world and so many challenging things. So this is a very interesting time for us all.
Yes, and very timely get together with you. So thanks, Scott. Let's get right to it. So Scott, leaders today have so much noise surrounding them, and they have so many varying priorities. And one of the most common things I hear among leaders is that there's just simply too much to do. There's too much to accomplish, and it becomes difficult to decide, what's most important in all of this stuff. So how do business unit leaders distinguish between what's truly important, what we call a WIG or wildly important goal, and how do they distinguish that from all of the other goals they have going on?
That's a fantastic question. We spend so much of our time working with executive teams, helping them sift through that very challenge. And my experience tells me one of the most important things is to figure out how this connects to the broader strategy that you're trying to accomplish and make sure that the noise doesn't just build up around you and starting to get disconnected from the strategy. So first thing we do, we orient people to helping understand what is in fact wildly important as defined by their strategy. So we want to make sure to make that connection first. The second thing is we want to make sure that every individual that's working on their wildly important goal understands that connection. We find that noise oftentimes is created by a lack of clarity. If we are a couple of degrees off on our strategic alignment, people's even best intentioned decisions start to pull resources and directions. So if we can help organizations focus by really agreeing on what's most important and what requires the treatment associated with a breakthrough result, we're in much better shape.
Something you just said really strikes me. So you talked about how this all has to tie into the strategy. And my experience with leaders is oftentimes you'll have senior level leaders that they all know the strategy, but you go one level below that. And sometimes people aren't even clear, not only on how they connect to the strategy, but the strategy just gets lost. Do you see the same thing?
Oh my gosh, yes. We see that in almost every organization we work with. It's one of the driving forces behind the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, is the disconnect between leaders of leaders, people who lead leaders, that senior team, and people who lead teams. We began with a lot of research just asking people, do you know what your highest priorities are? And it was shocking to me to find out that only half the people one level down even thought they knew what the goals were. And when we ask them, well, what is it? The numbers drop to 15%. So it is not an uncommon challenge. So you hit the nail right on the head.
And that's just one level down. I mean, think about as you cascade through the whole organization. And I think that's what's amazingly powerful about this execution framework. Let me pivot just a little bit. So we live in times of rapid and constant change, more than ever, right? It could be argued more than ever. So how can executives and senior leaders show results on their strategic initiatives, even amongst all of this disruption that's pretty chaotic for most leaders right now?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge. I don't want to understate and to somehow diminish what people are feeling and experiencing right now. Almost universally, people are struggling with some variation of the war for talent, trying to keep people, get people connected in different ways in this new reality. So I think we have to just acknowledge that things are a little bit different. But I also think all of that change puts an additional premium on clarity. We have to be crystal clear about what we're trying to accomplish. One of our colleagues made this comment to me one time, and it stuck with me. She said, it's not enough that people understand what you're trying to accomplish or what you're saying. It's that they can't misunderstand it. So one of the first things that I think is so important, especially in times of turbulence and chaos, is getting crystal clear, not just about saying the same words, but measuring things in the same way. And that's the first real hurdle of clarity that we help organizations with, is crystal clear definition of what is our target. We say targeting is the language of execution. We need a clear starting line, a clear finish line, and a deadline, and to make sure that people understand each of those with great alacrity.
Yeah, that distinction between not only understanding but not misunderstanding. I mean, it is hard to keep the thread clear. And again, I just don't think we can emphasize enough that disconnect that can happen every time you have a leader trying to manage a team, right? So at every step in the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another thing to build on your last point is each time you drop down a strategic level, you go from, we call it a breakthrough, wildly important goal, and then we drop down to a sub-WIG, and then we drop down to a third level. Each drop, there's a propensity to add and say, what are all of the things that we have to do? And we really want to reduce that with focus to the fewest number. So to drop down each time we do, we want to stay as laser focused as possible. I really think there's two dimensions of focus that are important for senior leaders, all leaders actually. The first is, of all the things we could choose, what are we going to choose? So that's the first one. So it's taking out some of the noise. And the second is like a camera lens. It's clarifying that focus. And that's what I'm talking about with this, being so clear that people can't misunderstand what you're talking about.
Yes, I love how you phrase that. One more question here. So you often work with executives and senior level leaders who are in that strategy space. What about if I am a front level leader or a mid-level leader? What should I be thinking about, and how can I be engaging in this execution strategy, even if I'm not as connected to the top level of my organization?
Fantastic question. Yeah, because we don't necessarily just execute from the CEO all the way down. Most of our implementations, this surprises some people, don't begin there. Some of our larger and earlier organizational implementation began with like a single director and a few managers and their team. So it's about defining the goal that you have within your circle of influence. So if my stewardship is a division, having a divisional WIG is totally appropriate. We don't necessarily need to have a CEO level WIG down to where we are. With that being said, it's really important that the goal you choose has clear and direct impact on your strategic priorities, because we're looking for something that's wildly important. And if you've got something that's disconnected from your strategy as an organization, the chances of it meeting that wildly important standard go down dramatically.
Yeah. So I can't just go off and make my own my own wig. It has to be tied in. Yeah, really well said. Such a great answer, Scott. Thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate your insight. It's, again, always a pleasure to spend time with you.
You as well. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
So to our listeners and viewers, as you think about how you execute as a leader, consider your goals and priorities. Are you focused on the right, wildly important goal? And if so, how can you continue to show results even in constant times of change? Thanks for joining us today. For more helpful resources on achieving breakthrough results, visit us at FranklinCovey.com.